At exactly 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday night in October, security cameras at Schönbrunn Palace captured something that made hardened guards refuse to work the night shift ever again. The footage showed a figure in white moving through the Hall of Mirrors, a hall that had been locked and empty for hours. What you're about to discover isn't just another palace tour. This is the story of Empress Elisabeth of Austria, whose tragic life created an echo so powerful that it still haunts the very walls where she once walked. And the evidence? It's more disturbing than you might imagine. Schönbrunn Palace did not begin as a monument to beauty, it was built as a symbol of power. Constructed in the 17th century as a hunting lodge and later expanded into a royal residence, it soon became the heart of the Habsburg dynasty. Every room, every corridor was crafted to embody imperial control. But the grandeur was never meant to comfort. Behind its golden facades, Schönbrunn became a stage for arranged marriages, political intrigue, and lives sacrificed in service of appearances. Here, monarchs grew old behind locked doors, children were raised under strict surveillance, and marriages were forged without love. Even in its golden age, there was no sanctuary inside these walls. The Empress Elisabeth, who once roamed these halls draped in black silk, wrote in her journals of isolation, of being watched and never truly seen. She was adored by the public, but trapped behind mirrors and duties that slowly eroded her spirit. Her only son, Crown Prince Rudolph, grew up in these same rooms, pressured, fragile, and ultimately broken. In 1889, he took his own life in what became known as the Marling Incident, a scandal that shattered the imperial family. The grief never lifted. Empress Elisabeth, already spiraling into melancholy, withdrew further into darkness. She wandered the palace in silence, refusing company, obsessed with youth and mourning what she had lost. Her assassination in 1898 by an Italian anarchist seemed not a violent interruption, but a final punctuation to a long, slow disappearance. But death did not close the story of Schönbrunn. Servants died in silence here, some from illness, others from accidents or despair. Entire wings were sealed off after tragedies, their histories removed from the official records. One hallway in particular, beneath the children's nursery, is still avoided long after it was last used. Even the palace's foundations are layered with unease. Some historians claim Schönbrunn was built over older structures, possibly religious or pagan in origin, buried during expansion. Whatever lies beneath, it has not remained quiet. This is not a place merely touched by tragedy. It is a place steeped in it, a gilded prison whose every stone remembers the sorrow it once contained. Karl Wortner had worked at Schönbrunn Palace for over 15 years. A former military man with a calm disposition and little patience for superstition, he had never believed the stories whispered among the staff. That changed one winter night during his regular midnight patrol. The air outside had dipped below freezing, and inside, the palace was eerily still. Karl walked his usual route through the east wing, his flashlight sweeping across the marble floors and velvet-lined walls. He reached the mirror-room chamber filled with massive gilded mirrors and a haunting stillness that always seemed too complete. As he stepped in, a sudden weight pressed on the atmosphere. The silence thickened, and then he heard it, soft weeping. A woman's voice, distant but distinct, echoing not from the walls but from within the mirrors themselves. Startled, Karl turned, but saw no one. He called out, thinking perhaps a visitor had stayed behind or a staff member had returned. The weeping stopped. Then the mirrors began to fog, thin streaks spreading slowly across the glass, despite the cold, dry air. He wiped one with his glove. It cleared for a moment, and that's when he saw her. A woman in black stood just behind him in the reflection, her face pale, her hair long and pinned high in 19th century style. Her eyes didn't meet his, they were cast downward, as if in mourning. Carl spun around. No one was there. He turned back to the mirror, empty. "I don't scare easily," Carl later said, his voice steady but low. But something in that room wasn't right. It wasn't just what I saw, it was what I felt, like I'd walked into someone else's grief, someone who didn't want to be disturbed. He finished his patrol, but never again entered the mirror room alone. He requested his shifts be moved to the West Wing, away from the Empress's quarters. When asked if he believed in ghosts now, he simply said, "There's something in that palace we don't understand, and it's not our place to challenge it." The security logs recorded nothing out of the ordinary, but Carl never forgot the fog, the weeping, or the silent figure in the glass. She is known among palace staff as the Empress in Mourning, though history remembers her as Empress Elisabeth of Austria. To the world, she was a symbol of grace and beauty, photographed with cascading hair, corseted tightly to preserve a figure that became legendary. But within the walls of Schönbrunn, she was something else entirely, withdrawn, unreachable, haunted. Born into Bavarian nobility, Elisabeth married Emperor Franz Joseph at the age of 16. From the beginning, court life suffocated her. Her letters spoke of loneliness, of being trapped in rituals that stole her youth. She wandered the endless corridors of the palace like a ghost even in life, escaping to remote parts of the estate, writing poetry about death and decay. Her health declined, her mental state withered, and then her only son, Crown Prince Rudolf, died by suicide in 1889. After that, she dressed in black and rarely spoke above a whisper. It is in these same mourning garments that she is said to appear still. Visitors report catching glimpses of a tall, slender woman standing silently before the mirrors in her private dressing room. The scent of lavender perfume, her favorite, will suddenly drift through the hall, only to vanish a moment later. On some nights, the sound of hair being brushed echoes faintly behind locked doors. When opened, the rooms are always empty. Staff who clean the East Wing speak of an unbearable pressure in the air near her quarters. One chambermaid claimed she entered the room and was overcome with grief, so powerful she collapsed. Psychics and paranormal investigators who have studied the site describe her presence as sorrowful but not hostile. "It's like she's still searching for something," one said. "A voice, perhaps, to hear her sorrow." A photograph taken in 2017 by a tourist showed what looked like a shadowed figure seated at a mirrored vanity. Experts could not explain the image. The room had been roped off that day. Some believe she walks the halls simply because they were hers. Others say her spirit remains tethered by mourning too heavy to lift. In life, no one could truly see her. In death, she makes sure she is never entirely forgotten. Natalie Grant had never believed in the paranormal. A school teacher from Manchester, she visited Schönbrunn Palace during a summer holiday with her mother. The day was warm, the tour groups thick, the atmosphere buzzing with the low hum of awe and camera shutters. It wasn't until they reached the upper levels of the palace that something shifted. The guide spoke softly as they entered the children's wing, once used for the royal heirs, and now cordoned off in parts, save for a single hallway open to the public. Natalie paused just outside a closed door, her mother moving ahead with the group. It was there that she felt it. A small hand slid into hers, cold, fragile. She turned, expecting to see a child, perhaps someone from another group who had gotten lost. But the hallway behind her was empty. "There was no one there," she recalled later. "But I know what I felt. That hand held mine for at least 5 seconds, long enough for my breath to catch. The guide, noticing her hesitation, asked if she was all right. Natalie explained what had happened, half laughing, waiting for someone to tell her it was a joke or trick. The guide only nodded. Quietly, he said, "It's not uncommon in this part of the palace." After returning home, Natalie began experiencing vivid dreams. Always the same boy, always the same blue velvet coat. He stood in a room she had not seen on the tour, holding a wooden horse, eyes wide, asking her to stay. The dreams continued for weeks, leaving her drained. "It wasn't terror," she said. "It was sadness. He didn't want to scare me. He just didn't want to be alone." Natalie has not returned to Austria since. When asked if she believes in ghosts now, she answers carefully, "I think some things imprint, especially if they've been forgotten long enough. Maybe he just reached for the first person who stopped to notice." In Schönbrunn, hers is one of dozens of similar encounters. Different visitors, same hallway, same hand, always cold, always waiting. Vienna is a city layered with time, Roman ruins beneath Gothic cathedrals, pagan wells buried under Christian altars. Schönbrunn Palace, for all its imperial glory, is no exception. Beneath the sculpted gardens and marble foundations lies older earth, and with it, stories that long predate the Habsburgs. Local historians speak quietly of an ancient grove that once stood on the very grounds where the palace now sits. Before the 17th century, this land was believed to be a site of fertility rites and seasonal offerings, where earth spirits were honored and bound. When the palace was built, the grove was cleared, its stones repurposed, its history buried physically and spiritually, but not, some say, without consequence. A Viennese folklorist named Anneliese Strohm, who has studied the site for decades, claims that Schönbrunn was constructed with disregard for older energies. "These were not spirits you anger," she once said. "They are spirits you respect." Schönbrunn was raised on sacred ground, and in doing so, it sealed sorrow beneath stone. Mediums who've entered the palace describe an unnatural layering, like time pressing on itself. Some believe the mourning presence of Empress Elisabeth acted as a spiritual conduit, her grief so vast it reopened what was buried beneath. Others suggest the palace itself is a container, not for spirits, but for emotional weight too dense to dissolve. There are reports of recurring phenomena near the old servant tunnels, lights dimming, static discharges, a constant, low-frequency hum. One theory is that the palace is not haunted in the traditional sense, but is instead alive, holding memory like marrow in bone. They call him the Silent Prince, though no name is recorded. Some believe he was one of the lesser-known sons of a Habsburg cousin. Others say he was born to a court servant and hidden away, a child of shame never acknowledged in life. His presence is strongest in the nursery wing, particularly near the sealed playroom behind the east corridor. It is here, beneath the fading frescoes of cherubs and forgotten toy chests, that he makes himself known. The manifestation is not violent. It begins with soft, rhythmic footsteps across parquet floors when no one is present. Then, the distant chime of a music box playing a lullaby no guide can identify. One former housekeeper, Magda Klaus, heard it repeatedly while cleaning near the back stairwell. "It always began around 3 in the morning, she said. Always the same notes. I thought it was a phone at first, but when I opened the door, it stopped, every time." The air near the old nursery is often colder by several degrees. Visitors have reported seeing antique wooden toys, especially a carved rocking horse, shift slightly in position between guided tours. Security footage from 2016 captured a ball rolling gently across the hallway, coming to rest at the foot of a locked door. The cameras showed no drafts, no vibration, nothing to account for the movement. Witnesses describe an emotional atmosphere that is strangely tender, an ache rather than a fear. "It felt like a child waiting to be noticed," said one museum archivist. "Not angry, just left behind." Some believe he died young, from illness or neglect, hidden away due to his illegitimacy. Others whisper that he was locked inside his room during a time of palace unrest and simply never let out. No records confirm either version, only the recurring phenomena remain. When asked if the child's presence should be removed or cleansed, a spiritual consultant once replied, "He's not haunting the palace is haunting him." Each year, candles are left anonymously outside the nursery door. No one claims them, but they are never removed. In the spring of 2023, a French filmmaker named Luc Marceau was granted limited access to Schönbrunn Palace for a historical documentary on European imperial architecture. With special permission from the Austrian Ministry of Culture, his team was allowed to film portions of the Empress's quarters during after hours when the palace was empty and silent. On the third night of production, the crew deployed a small drone to capture interior sweeps of the mirror room. It hovered smoothly through the entrance, its camera panning across gilded frames and massive panels of glass, glinting softly under rigged lighting. The feed was transmitted live to a monitor where Luke and his team watched in silence. What they saw has never been explained. As the drone turned to face the farthest mirror, one often noted in staff testimonies figure appeared. A woman, seated at the vanity, her face turned slightly to the side. She wore a black gown with intricate lacework. Her posture was rigid, hands folded in her lap. For a full 3 seconds, she remained motionless. Then the drone rotated slightly. In that instant, she vanished. The footage was captured in 4K analysis, revealed no editing, no light anomalies, no reflections that could account for the figure. There was no one in the room. The palace's doors had been locked from the inside. The thermal imaging camera mounted on the drone showed a distinct cold zone centered exactly where the figure had sat. Luc Marceau's voice on the recording is quiet. "Stop. Rewind that. Who is in the room?" The next day, the team packed their equipment and left Austria. The documentary was never completed. A short clip, 7 seconds in length, was leaked online before being taken down. In the comment sections, several viewers claimed the figure's silhouette matched portraits of Empress Elisabeth. But others noted something else. The expression on her face was not one of sadness. It was of stillness, an unreadable pause, like someone caught between worlds. Today, Schönbrunn Palace stands as a polished icon of Austrian heritage. Its halls echo with guided tours in multiple languages. School children shuffle past golden moldings, and tourists line up beneath chandeliers for perfect photographs. But behind the practiced warmth of its daily operation lies a quiet understanding among staff, among curators, among those who stay behind after the last guests leave, that not everything in the palace can be accounted for. Several rooms, particularly those in the Empress's private quarters and the eastern nursery wing, remain closed to the public. Officially, they are under ongoing restoration. Unofficially, they are avoided. Palace employees speak discreetly of electronics failing in those rooms, cameras losing focus, recorders falling silent, lights flickering even when power circuits are sound. One technician, hired to install new climate sensors in the dressing chamber, resigned mid-contract. He claimed he felt watched from behind for hours, though no one else had access during his shift. Night staff avoid the mirror room entirely. One maintenance worker, speaking under anonymity, said he found the large standing mirror moved slightly during every night shift, just a few centimeters off its mark, always toward the door. I started marking it with tape, he said. Next morning, the mirror would be closer to the hallway. Every time. In 2021, a renovation effort beneath the West Corridor was abruptly halted. Workers discovered an undocumented crawl space, filled with debris and what appeared to be personal effects from the early 1900s. Among the items was a child's shoe, a broken porcelain doll, and a torn velvet sash. Paranormal activity intensified after the discovery. Cold spots spread across rooms not previously affected, and 2 workers fell ill within days. The items were reburied under supervision. The hallway was sealed again. Though Schönbrunn remains open to the public, a quiet rule exists among staff. Respect the closed doors, speak softly in the East Wing, and never turn off the lights in the Empress's chamber. Not out of fear, out of reverence for those who may still linger there. What lingers in Schönbrunn Palace is not just the memory of empire, it is the weight of lives lived under velvet silence. Behind every gilded frame and polished floor is a history written not only in triumph, but in sorrow, solitude, and sacrifice. These are not stories found in textbooks. They are impressions left like fingerprints on glass, resistant to time and preservation. The Empress who refused to die still walks the hallways where she was never truly seen. A child, long forgotten, plays behind locked doors waiting for someone to answer. And a governess, eyes hollow with judgment, keeps guard over lessons long finished. Their presence is not performance, it is grief made permanent. The haunting of Schönbrunn is not theatrical. It is dignified, restrained, and devastating. These spirits are not here to terrorize. They are here because they never left. Whether by love, guilt, duty, or despair, something has tethered them to this place. Perhaps the palace itself is not haunted at all. Perhaps it is the ghost preserved, curated, admired by the living, but unable to let go of the dead. As you look again at its golden gates, or scroll past images of grand staircases and perfectly trimmed gardens, ask yourself, what does it mean when a place remembers more than its people? Can sorrow be built into the walls, woven into the tapestries, sealed beneath the marble? And if so, what else waits behind those mirrors? If you have walked the halls of Schönbrunn and felt the stillness settle too deeply into your chest, or if a moment there stayed with you long after you left, share your story in the comments below. Subscribe for more true accounts of the haunted, the sacred, and the forgotten. Because some histories are still being written in footsteps no one else hears.